We're previewing Week 7 in the NFL here at SBRForum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Right now we are talking with the guest that I always look forward to every week, Scott Kellen from SixCentSports.com. Scott, thanks for being back with us this week.
Hey, not a problem. Thanks for having me, Peter.
All right, before we get into St. Louis, Carolina, give a plug for SixCentSports.com.
Yeah, I appreciate that. SixCentSports.com, been around for 11 years. We are an NFL-only handicapping service. Have won 9 out of 11 years, and unlike maybe some of these other services that'll tell you they're winning every week, we won't tell you that. We're actually off to an average start this year. We're right around 500, but pretty confident based on our past historical results that we'll end up very solid this year. The numbers actually are coming together pretty good. We've had 3 very good weeks this year so far, so we've got a couple different price packages out there, so go out, take a look at the website. We're very transparent with our record. Everything's out there. You can see 30 minutes after the game kicks off exactly who we played and every play that we've got. And if you got any questions, shoot us an email, and we'll answer you ASAP and answer any questions you got.
St. Louis, Carolina is the first game we're going to discuss. Carolina 6 or 6.5 point home favorite. The total's 42, and St. Louis, of course, coming off a pounding of dysfunctional Houston. The Panthers coming off a pounding of dysfunctional Minnesota. Now, the Panthers have a great defensive front seven, and Cam Newton's coming off of a great game. So, I would be leaning towards Carolina here, because, Sam Bradford, he can get rattled, and if anyone can rattle him, it will be the Panthers' front seven. But, St. Louis is a young team with a lot of energy. They're coming off of a great win. And even though I'd lean Carolina, 6 or 6.5, that's kind of getting up there. It makes me a little bit nervous. And Cam Newton is still kind of, a little bit unreliable. So I would lean towards Carolina, but I'm definitely not confident enough to bet it. What do you like here, Scott Kellen?
Yeah, I like Carolina in this spot, Peter. I actually was one of the guys that went against St. Louis last week, and and obviously that turned out to be a disaster. But I also had Carolina last week at Minnesota, which ended up being an easy win. And I just think, now maybe St. Louis is playing better here. I don't know. I mean, they've won 2 games here. The game that they had 2 weeks ago over Jacksonville that they won, they were +3 in turnovers. Jacksonville actually was ahead in that game. They threw an interception that I think St. Louis returned about 80 yards or so, really turned that game around. But Jacksonville outgained them in that game, 6.2 yards a play to 4.9 yards a play. And then last week against Houston, kind of the same thing. They were +4 in turnovers against Houston. On their first drive down the field, they had about a 40-yard pass interference penalty. They returned a fumbled kickoff for a touchdown. And again, Houston in this game outgained them 5.8 yards a play to 5.3 yards a play. And I think Houston, as I look here, they ran for, I think, about 150-some yards last week as well. So Houston played pretty well, and at points in that game. And St. Louis, again, now you got to give them credit for creating the turnovers and whatnot. But St. Louis is not a good team offensively or defensively this year. On the defensive side, they are now giving up, as I look here, 6 yards a play against a collection of opponents that average 5.3 yards a play. They're averaging only 4.7 yards a play against teams that allow typically an average 5.4 yards a play. So they're not playing that well, other than the 2 wins they've had. And those 2 wins, which are high-scoring games for them, actually set them up in a pretty negative situation going on the road here, following 2 high-scoring wins. And they're going to take on a Carolina team that I think suits them very well from a rushing standpoint. Carolina qualifies in some great rushing situations for me. My numbers favor Carolina by 11 in this game. Carolina's played 2 home games this year. They lost a very competitive game against Seattle, 12-7. They were going in for the winning touchdown, and then, of course, blew out the Giants 38-0. I don't like to lay a ton of points with Carolina, but my numbers do say there's some value in Carolina. And St. Louis historically has been a very good dog, or I should say Jeff Fisher has been. They got blown out in the first couple games this year on the road, but obviously have responded or did respond last week. I think this is a good spot for Carolina. They should be able to dominate, like you said, with their front seven and be able to move the ball on the ground against this Rams team. I'm not a huge favor of laying a ton of points for the Carolina offense, but I think it's a good spot for them where they can win this game and beat St. Louis pretty handily.
All right, yeah, you just kind of answered my second question. Do you trust Cam Newton enough to lay almost a touchdown with him?
Well, not necessarily. I guess basically tell me what Cam Newton we're going to get, right? I mean, if you get the good Cam Newton, then yeah, absolutely. But if we don't get that Cam Newton, no, that could turn into a disaster, obviously. But I do think the one good thing here is Carolina's defense is so damn good that if they can contain St. Louis at all, which they should be able to do, even a few mistakes, there might be enough room for error, even though you're laying 6 points here, because I think Carolina will be able to run the ball, hopefully control that fast of the game, and take the ball out of Cam's hand to a degree. And if they can run the ball, hopefully he makes the right decisions and can execute, and we'll be fine. But you're right. Cam Newton's certainly a wild card here, and if we get the bad Cam, then they're not going to cover 6 points. No question about it.
Scott Kellen leaning Carolina -6 with Cam Newton over St. Louis. Thanks, Scott.